Don't tell me goodbye, just say goodnight. I'm going to a place where the light is shining bright. It's a wonderful land that is not made by hands, and all these questions of life you'll understand. Don't tell me goodbye, just say goodnight. I'm going to a place where the light is shining bright. It's a wonderful land that is not made by hands, and all these questions of life we'll understand. Ooh, good night. Ooh, ooh.
This older man that had a family, and all of his family were Christians but one boy. And he laid on his deathbed. Only had 2 hours to live, the doctor said. And he lay there, and his whole family were in the room. He had 3 children. And he didn't have much strength left. But as he lay there, he motioned for his wife to come over to the bed. His wife walked over and stood over him there at the bed. He looked up at her and he said, "Honey, you've been a wonderful wife. I love you. I'm looking forward to see you in heaven. Good night." With that, his mother stepped over, or his wife stepped over to the wall, and then he motioned to his oldest son, Bob. And Bob stepped over to the bed, and he looked up at his oldest son, Bob, and he said, "Bob, you've been a real blessing to my life. The oldest son, and I'm thankful that you got to know Jesus, and that you're serving Him. I'm looking forward to seeing you in heaven. Good night." The boy stepped away. Then he motioned to his daughter, Mary, to walk over by the bed. He looked up at Mary. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Mary, you've been a real blessing in my life. I'm thankful that you're living for Jesus. And I want you to get the right man for you. I want to see you in heaven. Good night." With that, he looked over and he started crying. He called Jim over, his youngest son. And Jim stepped over to the bed and he looked up at Jim and said, "Jim, your mother and I prayed for you for years and years, and we just don't know why, but you never come to know Jesus. And I'm going to have to tell you goodbye." And Jim, he just took by surprise and he said, "Father, why did you tell Mother and Bob and Mary good night and you tell me goodbye?" And the father said, "But Jim, you see, they know Jesus and they've accepted Him as their Savior, but you haven't. And they're going to heaven." And Jim there, he fell to his knees by the bedside and he started praying to God and he said, "Jesus, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry for all these sins. I want you to come into my heart. And I believe you. I believe your word. Save me." And at that, Jim had the smile on his face of knowing that someday he'd be with Jesus in heaven. He got up, and the father was looking up and he said, "Good night," and he passed away. With that, the man went into eternity, knowing that one day he'd see all of his family up there, and they'd be able to fellowship with Jesus.